Imagine you are out with your camera and suddenly there appears something amazing in front of you you've never expected. You get conditions like on another planet. There's just you, the conditions and your camera. In this video I will show you some examples of images where I got in a situation like that, and I will tell you exactly how you will get out the best possible photographs in such outstanding situations. Hi my friends, very nice to see you. I had a totally crazy week of landscape photography. I got out 2 images on 2 different places and you will never guess where I've taken them. I have them here as a test print, and yeah, this is here one of them. I will tell you later a little bit more of this image, how I took them and so on, and yeah, they are really special photographs. So just let me put them away that I don't damage them when I talk a little bit with my hands and so on. Well, how to get outstanding photographs. You know, usually when I want to get out a fantastic photograph, I build up a composition, I fine-tune it, I wait for the right timing, for the right light, the clouds in the right position, maybe I have a cup of tea, and finally when I thought about everything, I just make the click and I go home with a great photograph as a kind of trophy if you want. And these 2 images, which I showed you already, are totally different from a usual process of landscape photography. If you watched my videos over the last weeks, you know that I have an injury at my knee currently, and this is why I can't walk all too far. And to be honest, this is quite an obstacle here in the mountains. Most areas are at least a tiny bit steep, and you have to walk anywhere to get out of the civilized areas, what I can't do in the moment. So currently I really try to exploit each situation that allows me to get a photograph that's better than my average, without walking all too far. And what I do is generally, but even more in the moment, I try to be as observant as possible all day long. And so it happened that I was sitting in my office doing some important office stuff, and then by a sudden there rolled in the mist in the mountains. Amazing. This is exactly what happened to me some days ago. I just grabbed my camera, ran out to my garden, built up a composition freehand with my Sony a7R4 and my 70-200 lens. By the way, a massive thanks to my daughter here for filming this B-roll, me out in the garden photographing. Thank you, Sarah. And yeah, finally I got this shot. And a quite interesting thing is, I've been out again in my garden. Oh yeah, it's a big thing, I've been out again in my garden. But however, I just took a quick snapshot with my phone just to give you a comparison, just to see the difference here. And when we look here, it looks totally different. In my honesty, I would never ever just have the idea to take a photograph there, in my garden, behind my garden house. It is just an even boring mountain face, right? But when we look at the final image again, we have these bright trees in the foreground, leading us nicely into the scene around this hill, what's building an amazing contrast to the mountain face in the background. Along this kind of wrinkle, and the mist up there softens these usually hard contrasts between these patches of snow and the rock beside. The mist up there builds a fantastic sense of depth and tells a totally different story compared with that when we look at the snapshot where I had simply no mist. Yeah, really fantastic photograph, I totally like it. So finally, the conditions here were the absolute game changer. The conditions even made this image. And it is maybe not the best image in the world, but with other conditions, there had not really been a composition here, to be honest. And the thing is, this condition stayed for some minutes only, but I got the exact timing. A few seconds before, there had not been enough mist. A few seconds later, it had not been possible to look through this mist anymore to recognize the mountain face behind. And things like these happen sometimes. Each year I get some photographs like that, and the results are images which are totally impossible to plan. Obviously, they just happen. And when they happen, it is really important to know what you should do, what I will tell you in this video. So the first tip I want to give you: always be observant. Not only when you are out and surrounded by beautiful nature, in a perfect world, being observant is something that happens automatically without thinking all too much about it. See it just like a habit we have to get used to. Get used to be observant all the time. Well, I will give you some more tips about how to get outstanding landscape photographs. Let me show you my next photograph therefore. This is after the rain in the mountains. It was raining on a hot summer day, all the trees got wet, and exactly at that timing, when the rain stopped, the sunset left behind that peak. And as you can see, this led into amazing conditions. I was totally blown away by these three kind of triangle layers. In the foreground we have a dark layer with these steaming trees which lead us from the bottom left to this amazing house straight at the cliff. What is phenomenal, by the way. Could you imagine to live there? Leave me a comment below. Well, we have this middle layer with the cloud that is illuminated from the left, and behind the mountain we have the distance triangle, that orange moody sky. We have amazing colors and a fantastic warm-cold contrast. And now guess where I took this photograph? You guessed? Not in my garden, but from my balcony. So, I mean, this mountain face with that house up there at the cliff is something I watched already for more than 20 years. Each day from my living room. Maybe not each day, but at least more days a week. I really looked up there for years and I always thought how I could build up a working composition up there. And honestly, it never worked. I didn't find a solution, at least not an outstanding one. What I needed were the conditions to get the composition to work. So my tip for you is now, look for impossible places. What do I mean by that? Look for places that are outstanding, but where it is simply not really possible to find a strong composition. Impossible places. And most important, always return to these places through different conditions. And also here, the conditions can make it totally outstanding. And you don't need to travel all too far to find places like that. Maybe it is already enough to look just out from your living room or from your balcony. But before the first comments come below now, this is lazy landscape photography. Yeah, I mean, maybe, but what should I do? The conditions were amazing and it looked really that good. Sometimes it's good to do landscape photography from your house, if it's possible, of course. I promise you, for the next photograph I'll show you, I was out for a hike. Well, I've been out for a photo tour that morning, hiking this time, but to be honest, I didn't find a great composition on that day. I wanted to do a bit of blue hour photography behind that lake, but I didn't find something special. So I was walking back to my car, I thought already about breakfast and strong coffee, and as I was walking there, suddenly the sun came over that left-hand peak there, so the lake itself was still in the shadow and the mountain in the distance, as well as the mountain face at the right, were nicely illuminated and built an amazing contrast to the shadowed area. There was no wind, it was one of these fantastic summer mornings. The clouds were moving to the right, the sun came up, it got brighter and brighter, so I had to be really quickly. And what I did is I stopped immediately, I threw down my backpack, grabbed my camera and I built up this composition. And in a situation like that, I try to get the most simple composition that is possible, because there is simply no time to think about foregrounds, about flow and all these things, or even about different options. The photograph has to be taken right now, so my tip for you here is now, in a situation like this, hold your composition as simple as possible. And yeah, this one is a really simple composition. We have these leading lines pointing to the center, we have this warm-cold contrast, and most importantly, we have this story telling us getting a fantastic summer morning at the lake. I had a quite similar situation at my photo tour to Lake Lemperkasee last autumn. When I hiked down, I suddenly saw a composition in front of me. I just threw down my backpack and I took this shot, what is light in the end of a valley. By the way, this was that amazing collaboration with my YouTube mate Adrian, where I took a photograph here in the Alps for Adrian and Adrian took one for me in Australia. So if you like landscape photography adventures and you haven't seen the video, my friends, I can really recommend. I will link it up there for you that you can watch it after this video. By the way, here another really good example about holding a composition simple when you have to frame up really quickly. I was out for shooting an amazing frozen waterfall, but when I arrived at the parking place, the conditions at the lake were just outstanding. Unfortunately, there was no simple composition possible. There were too many elements to be aligned. So just quick here. These grasses here reach too much to the right hand side, the land in the distance seemed to sting to the rock, and as it took me too long to build up the composition, the peak at the left hand side was already illuminated, what distracts the viewer's eyes. Well, and here another good example. This is Light of Refuge. I was out for a photo tour up in the mountains, and as I was already on my way down, really I thought to dream as I saw this cone of light shining through a gap in the mountain, and here I had to be really fast. I threw down my backpack, I think we could already say as usually, and the light lasted just for a minute or two maybe. I mean, there are situations where I have to be even faster, especially when the sun is shining through a gap in the clouds. But anyway, you have to be fast in situations like this. And this is my tip here for you, be as fast as possible. And I think it is obvious that if you want to be fast, you need to know your gear as well as possible. Where are all your settings on your camera? What is the longest shutter speed you can shoot freehand? How far can you go with the aperture on your lenses? What is the maximum ISO you can use without ruining your photograph? And for the case that you shouldn't know how to find out all these things, I made already a video about that, how exactly you can find out these things. I will link it up there for you. My friends, just for the case that you like this video, I will be really happy if you could give me a thumb up. It is just one click for you, but it would really help me to get this video better ranked on YouTube. Thank you therefore. Well, we talked already about one of the photos I took this week, but there is a second one and this is absolutely amazing. You know, due to my knee injury, it is really difficult for me in the moment to get to amazing places, to get out outstanding photographs. I mean, I don't want to complain, I got really fantastic images over the last weeks, but in the moment it is really not easy to find places that are outstanding in the one hand, where I don't have to walk more than 5 minutes or so, where I don't have to walk steep, and also where not all too many people, to be honest, because yeah, I do vlogging now for a year and a half, but I still feel uncomfortable when I'm vlogging beside people. So what I've done is, I had a look at the weather maps and I saw that there will come a weather front straight at the time where the sun would appear behind the mountains in this scene. And so I hope that these mountains in the distance, especially these at the right hand side, that they would catch nice sidelight from the left, whilst the village here in the foreground would stay in the shadow. So this was the plan. And the problem here, the village obviously. You know, I usually try to avoid buildings in my landscape compositions. I prefer to have poor nature. That's, yeah, just taste maybe, but yeah, I mean, I'm a landscape photography. But in the one hand, the view down over that lake is just amazing. And in the other hand, as I already mentioned, it is really that difficult in the moment to find places for me without walking all too much. And yeah, to be honest, in this case, I've even photographed from a parking place. So what is also the reason why I haven't vlogged about taking this image. So sorry therefore, but I hope you understand. However, it was not the most beautiful place up there, but the view down there, wow. And so what I didn't tell you is, you saw only the final image, But before I got the final photograph, I built up a totally different composition. I tried to get away from the most buildings, I just included them very subtle. The lake was open at both sides, what I usually try to avoid at water scenes, but I decided therefore really to get rid of the most houses, what worked really fantastically for me. The rock here at the left hand side gives us a fantastic sense of depth, and the tree at the left as well as the one at the right obviously limit our frame a bit. They just help to frame it a tiny bit. And as I was building up the composition, I was looking through the viewfinder. Yeah, I usually do this because I see a bit better than with the display only. And as I was framing up, I saw the light suddenly broke through and there appeared this strange light ray in the middle of my composition. Honestly, in the first second, I didn't really know what happened there. Again, I looked through my viewfinder and it looked more like a mistake for me. I simply didn't want to have it there. And so I came away from my viewfinder and I saw this amazing scene. The light ray came from a gap in the clouds at the left hand side and finally it hit at a middle at the right hand side, outside of my original composition. Again, outside of my composition. So what now? The composition what I built up already looks simple, but it was really complicated because of all the houses in the foreground. It was quite difficult to cut them at the right position. And so what I did is, first of all, I exposed just for the case, and you saw the photograph already. And then I saw the new composition. I was just unsure about where to cut the houses. And then I said to myself, yeah, let's make a panel. And I switched my camera to manual mode. I got sure to expose right and then I got 9 frames which I stitched together afterwards with Lightroom. The light ray appeared just for a few seconds. It was just enough to get my panel in. And it ended up with this image what I'm really happy about. And my tip for you now is here, don't stick to your composition. I mean, I usually tend to stick to my compositions and I wait for the right conditions, for the right light, for the cloud getting at the right position and so on. This usually works really fantastic for me. But when there happens something what is a big game changer for your composition, be open, be flexible and frame up a new composition as fast as possible. And in this case it was really difficult. All the houses with their straight edges draw the viewer's eyes and finally I had to align them all in a way that the composition works, and in fact there was not really time to build up a new composition. And let me give you an extra tip here, 2 extra tips even. It is really that important to be good at composition. I'm not talking about the rule of thirds here. A rule like that will not lead into a really strong composition. I'm talking about composition, the artistry concept of your image. And this is what you should get a master in. What you should be able to be blindfolded even. Really, composition is key. And the better you know how to build up a composition, the faster you will be in building up one when it's really necessary to be fast. And if you want to get better in composition and don't know how, I made already a video about that where I gave really useful tips. I will link it up in the corner for you. And yeah, I said 2 extra tips, so the second one is, if you're unsure about one important thing in your composition and you don't have time to think about, because the conditions are already changing, make a panel like I did. I mean, I saw the composition, but it was really useful to be able to think at home about where I have to crop the houses in that case. I hope this is useful. So yeah, my knee gets better and better and I hope to be able to do some hikes soon again. But meanwhile I will maybe go out for some more micro adventures. What's also really cool. I mean, in the moment I get photographs from places I would usually never go for landscape photography. Amazing, isn't it? My friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. If yes, I were really happy if you could give me a thumb up. And don't forget about your friends. Share this video on Facebook, Instagram, email, WhatsApp, whatever. Give your friends also the chance to get outstanding photographs. Thank you so much for watching. See you next Saturday. Bye.
I'm the landscape you need to see. You are the artist I'll never be. Stay with me and I have no doubt you'll make a painting that makes you proud.